Howdy, I'm John, and I decided to put some blueberries into the ground, but I found out you gotta do a few things first. Blueberries are a very interesting and very strange plant. They grow up in these kind of boggy areas, in areas that have had all the soil and plant residue washed up onto these little tills. So they're so close to wet, boggy soil, but they have to be on a well-drained soil that's above that. And they have to have a really low pH. They're like among the lowest pH of anything that I've heard of raised commercially. 4.5 to 5.5 is their sweet spot. But most of our soil here is 6.5, and when I've been irrigating for a few years, the accumulated salts bring the pH over 7, so I had to make a soil suitable for blueberries. And when you look online about how to lower pH, you get reports that coffee grounds, pine needles, and peat moss are acidic, but I found they aren't that low. The acid in coffee grounds goes into coffee, so used grounds are kind of neutral. And some say that sphagnum peat moss is acidic, but not when I wet it and test it. Pine needles don't really transfer any acidity to the soil. All the looking I found says your best bet is to make your own soil in pots or raised beds and to use elemental sulfur. Now again, sulfur itself is not acidic, but as it is digested by the soil microbes, they turn into phosphates, phosphoric acid, and it's a slow, natural process initiated by the microbes, and it can take months to get results, and it happens fastest in warm weather. Well, I decided I'm going to go with a raised bed. And I wanted to keep gophers out, so I lined the bottom with hardware cloth. Click the link above for that video. I wanted everything that goes into a raised portion to be an acidifying ingredient, but I still also wanted to have a mineral soil. So about half the volume is screened garden soil, and even though it's got a little bit high pH of 7.0, it's very, very well draining. Kind of a pebbly mix that I screened. Very open and porous, lots of small pebbles and sand with some loam. Blueberries also like chunks of fir or pine in the soil mix. Very odd. These materials may have some acidifying action as they decompose, so I went to a fallen pine tree and bashed into it, taking out rotten, punky wood to use as a volumizer for the soil mix. I also added a couple bales of sphagnum peat moss I moistened first, and a bale of pine wood shavings, and a lot of pine wood chips. Then I added some gypsum to add calcium without raising the pH. And I used two types of soil sulfur, a type commonly used for azaleas and rhododendrons, which need similar type soil, and also a powdered version that is nearly 100% sulfur. Now this one is a slow release type sulfur. It's coated, pelletized, easy to apply, spreads way easy. Everyone likes it, but it takes months and months to really start working, although it may have a long residual effect in the soil. The powdered one is such a fine powder that the microorganisms can work on it faster and thereby lower the pH a bit faster, but it's still going to take months to really have an effect. After a month of working it, the 7.2 pH has gone down to 6.5 or lower at some spots. I expect it'll continue down for a while as the sulfur in the soil gets worked by the microbes. So if you're going to plant blueberries, it's advisable to start working the soil months before planting and make sure to get two varieties for complete pollination. The blueberries seem to be taking the higher pH pretty well even. Go ahead and subscribe so you can keep up with the pH on this spot and see if it's what you might want to try for blueberries. See ya!